Thank you everybody for coming out on behalf of the People's Alliance Party of New Brunswick. Great to have you here today, all you great air machines from all 3 ridings. I'm Eric Wall from Southwest Air Machine Magazine. They give me the MC position so that I wouldn't have to speak. Just introduce. So, I took this on about 8 months ago. Some people have already met me at the rally or out around door knocking. I spent my career in the Canadian Navy. I moved back home to Doketown. Actually, I grew up in Carrolls. I moved back home to Doketown in 2010, 2011 time frame. And I'm now a village councillor with the village of Doketown. I'm involved with a lot of different things in the community, especially the Legion, of course, with my background in the military. So I listen to people, I've been out around, and I know that people are very dissatisfied with the current government and with the government that was previously in before the Liberals took over. So about 8 months ago, I got approached by Mr. Dougie Lyons. Said they were looking for somebody to run as a candidate in Southwest Miramichi, and I said, yep, I would love to do that because we can make a difference and we can turn this province around with Chris Austin, I guarantee you. So as I go door to door, I spent my weekend or Saturday last week in Napan with very lovely Janice Dixon taking me around door to door. And I've done a lot in my own area. When I get a chance in the evening, I'm going out and I'm talking to people. And the biggest thing that people want is change. I hear it everywhere I go. They've had enough. They want a refreshing new government that is not taking and towing the party line. So they want change, they want to quit seeing all the spending all over the province. It doesn't make sense. They're interested in their forestry and the horrible forestry policy that we have right now. It's got to be changed. Duality. Duality is a concern amongst many, many people I talk to. We have ambulance in New Brunswick. That's a horrible, horrible disaster to all the people that work there. We have an education system that's sending kids on school buses separately, putting a wedge between the French and the English people of this province, and that's not what we want. So without further ado, I would like to introduce a mentor to all us candidates, a man that has a great vision for the province of New Brunswick, our next Premier, Mr. Chris Austin.
Thank you all so kindly, and it's so good to see everybody out this afternoon. Sorry I had to bring the bad weather with me, but it was coming, we had a couple of hot days, and of course today we were seeing kind of a downward trend there. But you're here, and that's what's important. I also want to thank the organizers of this event. I know a lot of work and effort goes into getting these rallies together, getting the word out, making sure things are organized. People have prepared food. We had a couple chefs out there with steak and lobster that was getting the food going. Well, you guys got hot dogs. Oh, sorry. But they did a great job, and I really appreciate all the work that goes into that. Now, if I can find my notes, we'd be all set. Charlie, did you happen to grab my folder? It's all about the team, folks. It's all about the team. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to be in the Mayor Machine. And look, I love coming to the Mayor Machine. Matter of fact, myself and my executive assistant, we kid around all the time that it's just like our second home to be able to come up here and see you fine folks. And what I find is so special about this area is the Mayor Machine has true grit. You folks know what it means to fight for what you believe in, to fight for change and not take any guff from anybody, including government. And I appreciate that. So give yourself an applause for that great spirit of the Mayor Machine. And I do want to mention too, I've got my beautiful family here with me today. And guys, this lady's taken, okay? But this is my wife in the back, Amanda. Give everybody a big wave. My son Silas, little girl Chrisley, and they've been incredibly supportive in my endeavors here to change things in the province of New Brunswick. So there's great things ahead. Also like to thank the candidates. I know you folks have come from all over New Brunswick to be here today and show your support to the area and to the cause of creating change. I don't think that there's any doubt in anybody's mind when you look at the current state of our province that we desperately need change. And it becomes this cliche. I understand election after election, you see these fancy slogans. I think last time it was put New Brunswick's first, ... for a change. And, we talk about change. But yet, when we see liberal and conservative flips, we see no change. What we see is added debt, greater deficits, cutting services, frivolous spending, mismanagement of tax dollars, and it goes on and on and on. And the change that we need is truly a change that really puts New Brunswick back on the map, gets our young people from out west to come back home to work, creates an economy and a government that works for the people. And I can tell you folks, with the change that we've been spreading, with the message of change that we've been getting out to the people of New Brunswick, it is paying off because we're seeing more momentum. Our membership is growing all the time. We're getting new candidates on board all the time, and we see a great movement that is beginning to happen. Matter of fact, I'm very excited to say here this afternoon that we have a new headquarters in Fredericton, and we will be having a grand opening probably around the mid-late June. But I want to let you know that it's an office where it's going to be a place where we strategize, and we'll have a war room there, conference areas, office space for phone calls, and it's our first provincial headquarters. We're very excited about that. Very exciting time to be part of this movement and all that it entails going forward into the election. Now, September 24th, of course, is a big day, and as a result, with September 24th coming, again, the candidates have been working hard. I know many of you that are candidates that are here today, you've been knocking doors, you've been getting out to events in your community and telling people this message of hope and change that is desperately needed for New Brunswick. Now, whenever we prepare for a campaign and we get new candidates on, there's always, the occasional bump in the road. There's never a perfect smooth sailing into the election. But, there are times that as we come through that there's things we've got to change, there's things we've got to do to make sure that the campaign is the most effective going forward. And, of course, the Mayor Machine, we had two great candidates, Art being one. I know Art's been working very hard. And I spent some time with him here a couple weeks ago in the Doketown area, and just seeing the momentum that he's gaining in the riding of Southwest Mayor Machine. Now, with that said, of course, Shelley Dance was the candidate up here, and unfortunately, things happen where candidates do have to back down, sometimes for personal reasons or otherwise. But Shelley, due to employment reasons, she did have to back down as a candidate, and I just want to say here publicly that we really appreciate the work that Shelley did, in her time as a candidate, and we respect her decision to back down and all that she offers. Now, the good news with that is, when when we got word about Shelley's resignation, it wasn't too long where we had another gentleman that put his name forward for that riding as well, and we're just going through the nomination process with him. And the closing, I do want to make public here tonight that the closing for the riding will be Monday, 5 o'clock. So we want to keep things moving, right? This is no time to slow down. This is time to put her in fifth gear. So we want to keep it moving. So Monday at 5 o'clock, the nominations will close for that riding. We'll be very excited. I know you will be excited with the candidate that we will have going forward from there, should it not be contested. So great things ahead there too. So we're working on a different New Brunswick. We want a path forward where the people of this province can be proud to live, work, and raise a family, where New Brunswick can once again thrive and grow, and where we don't have to lose our most skilled people and young people to other parts of the country and around the world, but where they will stay here and grow and prosper. Now, here yesterday, I had the opportunity of being in St. John. Anybody hear anything about the paramedic fiasco that's going on? You probably read that in the news. You know, it blows my mind that you have such a stressful job fundamentally. Anybody who gets into being a paramedic, they do it because they want to help people. They want to be there on the front line to be able to assist when they need them the most. And, you know, the job itself, as I said, is very stressful at its very foundation. But what makes it worse is when you have bad government policies that kind of overlap and place a greater burden on an already stressful job. So now you've got paramedics around the province that are exhausted, they're overworked, they can't fill full-time permanent positions due to language. Those that are working are exhausted because they can't get vacation time. And it just goes on and on and on. So we stood proudly with our paramedics in St. John yesterday, representing all of them around the province, and to say, look, this system has to change. We cannot continue this system of gaps. I'm not sure what it's like here in the Miramichi, but from what we're hearing in many parts of the province, including areas like Dogtown and Boys Town, I know my area of Grand Lake, all through Charlotte County, there's always gaps of paramedic services that are apparent and that are there. When you have one ambulance covering tens and tens of kilometers of service, and if the worst were to happen and you got one paramedic, one ambulance tied up, what happens, right? They've got to bring the ambulance in from the nearby city to come in, which can take, I'm hearing reports of people waiting 45 minutes to an hour for a paramedic. I can tell you what, there's no reason with the taxes we pay as the people of this province that anybody at any time should be waiting an hour for emergency services. That's unacceptable. I can tell you the People's Alliance stands firmly behind our paramedics to make sure that they get what they need to do the great job that they do. Speaking of taxes, New Brunswick is constantly being bombarded with taxes. Matter of fact, this current government has raised taxes in this province over 10 times, and putting a greater burden on the people in terms of the amount of resources that they have to spend where they need it. And you can look at taxes that have been raised over and over again, even including the fuel tax. You look at the pump price now, it's like $1.30, $1.31 a liter. And that all trickles down. We pay it at the pumps when we drive. We also pay it when we buy groceries. Everything is trickled down to fuel prices. And yet the government continues to raise taxes on all of these things, which puts a greater burden on the people of this province. So I'm a firm believer that if we're going to have a New Brunswick that moves forward, if we're going to have a New Brunswick that can thrive, grow, and prosper, we have to have tax reform. We cannot continue to burden our people, our businesses, and our industries with an overwhelming sense of taxes that do nothing in terms of management for the betterment of the people. And if any of you here today are driving on some of the rural roads, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Nothing grinds my gears more than when I hit potholes and wonder to myself, what's that repair bill going to cost me? Knowing full well that over $140 million is being spent on a 4-lane highway, brand new highway in Shediac. I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't that $140 million go to fix some of the potholes on the roads we currently have, rather than building new roads that we don't need? So we need tax reform. Now, in order to reduce taxes and to make taxes back to a reasonable rate for the people and businesses of this province, there has to be revenue made up on the other hand. I can tell you that in New Brunswick there's a huge imbalance in our tax system. So the fact that the average citizen is paying more than their fair share of taxes, while large corporations are paying less than their fair share of taxes. So we've got to get a balance in this system. We've got to stop corporate welfare. I'm a firm believer that our tax dollars should be looking after health care, education, infrastructure, and social programs. Our tax dollars should not be going to fund the most profitable corporations in Canada like TD Bank, Bell, Irving, and on it goes. That has to stop. And we talked about eliminating the small business tax. So the taxes that small businesses pay, we can completely eliminate that and give those small businesses the extra money they need to hire an extra employee or reinvest it back in their businesses, right? Rather than taking from them more than what they're able to give. Small businesses in this province are struggling greatly. Many of them are folding up and moving on because they just can't make a go of it. Now, the small business tax that we're looking to eliminate is a drop in the bucket in terms of provincial revenue. Matter of fact, over the last 3 weeks, this government has announced more corporate welfare that would equate to 1 year of no small business tax. I'll give you a couple examples. When was it? Here, I believe, 2 weeks ago. The government announced that they're going to give Siemens $3.6 million to create 60 jobs. That was actually on May the 30th. That was just a couple days ago. So the government thought it was a good idea to take $3.6 million to create 60 jobs. Now the question that I have is when those if those 60 jobs are created, how long will those 60 jobs last before they too leave the province and the people of the province are left with nothing once again? So there's $3.6 million that just flew out. Siemens has a recorded profit of about 2 billion euros, exceeded their expected forecast of profit. They were up 18% from the previous year. So here you have a large corporation which is seeing profits, which is greater and greater every year, 18% increase in the profits, and they're coming to the taxpayer looking for you and I to help fund jobs to create for a short period in New Brunswick. That nonsense has to stop. On May 26th, the government announced that they're going to give $2.2 million of your dollars to S&P Data to create jobs for 1 year. We don't know what will happen in the second year, but for 1 year, that's going to cost us $2.2 million. Apex Industries did $1.1 million for 60 jobs, which was just announced May the 17th. So in a matter of 2 weeks, think about it this way. In a matter of 2 weeks' worth of announcements, this government could have taken the same amount of money and practically eliminated the small business tax for every single small business in the province of New Brunswick for an entire year. Think about that. I'm a firm believer that if you want to create jobs, if the government is serious about revitalizing the economy in New Brunswick, you have got to enable the private sector to do just that. This is not about taxpayer money. Listen, give me $2.2 million, I'll create 60 jobs. I can give $2.2 million to anybody in this place, and I'm sure you could find 60 people to work for a year. Right? I mean, this is the easy way out. This is what government does. They all want to cut the ribbon and get the front page of the paper, but they don't want to give an account for how many jobs last after the first year and the money's gone. right? So we have to shift the way that we're thinking as a government. We have to shift the way that we're thinking as a province and get serious about our economy and building jobs. I'm a firm believer that if you lower taxes, if you eliminate the small business tax, if you get rid of the double tax, which is completely ridiculous, we're the only province in Canada that charges a double tax on second properties. So anybody that's operating a business out of a piece of property, they're paying a double tax. And the millions of dollars that they're paying in double taxes, they could be using to reinvest in their business, hire more employees. I talked to one developer in the city of St. John. He said he pays roughly $1 million in taxes with businesses that he has in St. John. He buys the old historic buildings in St. John, the beautiful character of those buildings, and he hires contractors, plumbers, painters, electricians, and they come in, they renovate the buildings, and then he rents them back out for commercial businesses or residents. And he said he pays around $1 million in double tax a year for those businesses. He said to me one day, he said, Chris, now what, if I didn't have to pay this ridiculous double tax that is unique to New Brunswick, what do you think I would do with that extra income that I no longer have to give to the government? I said, I don't know, what would you do with it? He said, I would take it, I would either buy more properties, I would hire new contractors, I would hire new carpenters, I'd hire new electricians. He said, I would give my mark to the economy just by not paying that tax and reinvesting in my business. And that's one developer. If you took that same thought across the province, how many other people are paying these ridiculous amount of taxes that they would much prefer to put back into their businesses and get people working again? This isn't rocket science, but we have to change the way we tax our people, and we have to change the thinking that giving money to big corporations is somehow going to revitalize our economy. It hasn't worked, it doesn't work, and it won't work. We need change. Now, just curious with the folks that are here today, everybody remember the property tax scandal? If you don't remember it, I don't know where you've been. But the property tax scandal was a huge boondoggle, okay? Those of you that were affected by the property tax scandal, you know what I'm talking about when the government basically said that they fabricated renovations to your property, right, in an effort to get more taxes out of you. I often wonder, how many people lost their job because of that? How many people got criminally investigated because of that? Who's held accountable for the fact that the government fraudulently put things into our property taxes that we could pay more taxes to the government? And I asked myself, what if the tables were turned? What if you decided that you're going to fabricate your renovations to lower your tax bill? How would that work out for you? So how is it that the government can do the exact same thing without any repercussions? And the Auditor General did a report on it. The government said, yes, we're going to look into the recommendations and we're going to try to do what we can. That's not acceptable. Somebody has to be held in account. So that whole property tax scandal, which in effect attempted to take millions of dollars fraudulently from homeowners across this province, while our taxes are going up, there was one industry whose taxes went down. I'm going to tell you which industry, so don't hold your breath. So while all this is going on, the city of St. John, okay, which is one of the cities that struggle the most financially across Canada, there you've got the LNG Canaport, right? And you remember the deal that was signed years ago that that industry would pay zero taxes for 25 years if they decided to set up in St. John. Anyway, the deal was signed, everything was agreed to. And here recently, the city of St. John said, look, we're losing a lot of revenue that we should be getting from this industry that's here. So the city of St. John went to the province of New Brunswick and said, look, you got to cancel this deal and we need to start getting tax revenue from this LNG Canaport. So the province agreed. And we applauded the province for that. We said, good, finally, some money will go into the city of St. John, go into the province, and things will be a little more fair in that sense. Well, here's what they did. Now, listen, one thing I've learned, I've been in politics now for quite a while, one thing I've learned the more I dig and the more I search, whenever something looks good, you really want to read the fine print. right? There's always the devil in the details, and you always want to peel back the curtain to see the guy behind, you know what I mean? So I said, well, there's got to be more to this. Well, come to find out, although the government stopped this tax break for the LNG, they decided that they're going to hire assessors, not from New Brunswick, not even from Canada. They hired assessors, property assessors for industrial buildings out of New Jersey. They paid them $75,000 to come from New Jersey into St. John to do an assessment of Canaport, the LNG. $75,000. Now this assessment company prides itself on lowballing assessments so that the industry can pay the lowest taxes possible. So in the property tax scandal, when all of our properties are being higher taxed, and many of us are being fraudulently increased in taxes, this company's down at the LNG Canaport terminal, and they're there, and at the end of the day, they've lowered the assessed value of that property by 69%. Now, show of hands here this afternoon. How many of you had your property lowered by 69%? Anybody? You see what I mean? Huge imbalance in what we're seeing here. So the city of St. John, which is expecting so many millions of dollars from that LNG Canaport, because the assessment was lowered, meant the tax revenue coming in was also lowered, and it was just a huge disappointment. It was an opportunity for the government to do the right thing and to hit it right on the mark, and instead they used diversion and they used bad tactics to make sure that industry did not pay their fair and reasonable tax rates. I'm a firm believer that we need a fair and balanced system, not just for citizens, but for businesses and industry as well. I'll give you one more example. The Irving Oil Refinery in St. John. Now that refinery is the largest oil refinery in Canada. It's one of the largest oil refineries in North America. That oil refinery pays approximately $4 million a year. $2 million goes to the city of St. John, $2 million goes to the province of New Brunswick. If you were to take that refinery and pick it up and drop it in the middle of Alberta, that same refinery would be paying between $24 to $26 million a year. So when I say that large industry has to pay fair and reasonable rates, I'm not talking about gouging large industry or driving large industry out of the province. What I'm saying is having industry paying fair and reasonable rates so that the citizens of the province don't have to pay unfair and unreasonable rates to make up the difference. That's the common sense. We must have tax reform in the province of New Brunswick, and to do so, we would eliminate the small business tax, we would eliminate the double tax, and we would include machinery and equipment in industrial assessments. We also firmly believe in language fairness. And I think the first step to language fairness, with all due respect, is the language commissioner resigning. That was a good first step to language fairness. And I want to make it very clear to the folks that are here today. The People's Alliance firmly believes in the right of both French and English citizens and residents of this province to receive service in their language of choice. We fully understand that New Brunswick has a diverse culture and that we have great roots in every aspect of that culture. And we believe that service can be given to both French and English residents in a much more fair, sustainable, and efficient manner. As a result, in bringing our cultures together and seeing harmony among French and English residents, we would end duality. There's no jurisdiction in the world, no civilized jurisdiction in the world that I'm aware of, that would separate children on school buses simply because of language. I've never heard of it. How absolutely ridiculous and pathetic is it that you have to have two school buses chasing each other around the province at a cost to you and I, while Jacques is getting on one bus and Johnny's getting on another, going to their separate schools, coming back, getting dropped off on their separate buses. And what do? They play in the same hockey teams, they play in the same playgrounds, they play in the same soccer fields. English and French don't have the problem in New Brunswick. The government has the problem in New Brunswick. Plain and simple. We are determined. We are going to end duality. There will be no more separate buses. There will be no more wasted dollars towards dual health authorities, one paying for Talatay, one paying for Horizon. All the administration of that nonsense will be gone, and we'll use the savings from ending duality and put it back into healthcare, getting some doctors and nurses back where they need to be. By ending duality, eliminating corporate welfare, and stopping the waste and mismanagement of our tax dollars, I'm a firm believer we can get New Brunswick back to fiscal management, balanced budgets, and reducing the debt in no time with a robust and a diverse economy. So when you eliminate corporate welfare, when you end duality, when you stop the waste and mismanagement of tax dollars, you have what is called surpluses. New Brunswick has no idea what a surplus is because we've never seen one in 11 years. I'll tell you what, folks, if you ran your household the same way the provincial government has ran your tax dollars, you'd be living under a bridge, if you can find one fit enough that you would live in. It is ridiculous the way governments, liberal and conservative alike, have wasted our tax dollars year after year. 11 straight years of going in the red. 11 straight years. What business, how many shareholders would allow CEOs and executives to sit on a company that goes in the red for 11 straight years? Shareholders would vote them out in a heartbeat and get some competent people in there to do the right thing and get the books back in line. That's a no-brainer. And I'm thoroughly convinced that come September 24th, we got to do the exact same thing. As shareholders, taxpayers of this province, we got to get rid of the CEO and all those executives that aren't doing their job and doing it properly, and time to get some new direction and a new voice in there to do it right. We're going to see the time come when New Brunswick can get back on track. We cannot continue to run deficits. We cannot continue to have a debt now which is projected to be $4.4 billion. I mean, we're talking about a province the size of a large city, 750,000 people. And out of a small city the size of New Brunswick, you know, we're paying ridiculous amount of taxes, and yet we're still running deficits. The government raised taxes almost 11 times since taking office. And those tax increases you would think would balance the books, but no, sir. Those tax increases, just as quickly as they're coming in, they're spending it just as fast. A new $50 million museum in St. John. $50 million museum in St. John. They're saying now it could be as much as $180 million for the 4-lane highway in Shediac. Almost $8 million given out to corporate welfare in the last 3 weeks alone. They're just blowing your money trying to buy your vote. And look, don't do that with my money. You want to win elections, you want to stay in government, give us some outside-the-box thinking. Start creating some good, solid policy. Put your heads where it needs to be and get some real grit of ideas out there to turn the province around. Not this fabricated shell of a game that we've been playing in the political world. That stuff has to stop. We need concrete action. We need real ideas to move New Brunswick forward, and that's exactly what the People's Alliance is here to offer. With the money that we will save from eliminating corporate welfare, eliminating duality, and getting proper management of the fiscal house in order, would be more money that we can allow New Brunswickers to keep in their pockets. Another thing that we are committed to do is make changes to the Motor Vehicle Act. Anybody in this room registered their vehicle in the last few weeks? Again, just curious, how much did it cost? Just shout me out a number. What did it cost you? 108, 109, too much? 142. So I'm curious when you register your vehicle, you know, you're sitting in a service New Brunswick line, or you're doing it on the computer with your Visa, MasterCard, however you choose to register your vehicle.
Well, you can't. You got to use a debit card. You can't pay for your
Yeah. So whatever method you're using to register your vehicle, have you ever thought to yourself, I know I have, Why am I required to register this vehicle that I've owned for the last 5 years, or 4 years, or 3 years? Why am I registering this again? Didn't I already do this? And we ask ourselves the same question. What is the purpose of annual vehicle registrations? And we started to research. We started to ask different organizations, different government agencies, what's the reasoning behind this? There's got to be a method to the madness. What's the purpose of collecting all this money in a registration of a vehicle every year? And everywhere we turned and we asked the question, it was just like a deer in the headlights. I didn't even know what we were talking about in terms of why. So we're determined to say, look, let's allow New Brunswickers to keep more money in their pocket. So as part of our platform, when we release our platform, in that will be a one-time vehicle registration. So when you buy a vehicle, whether it's a new car or a second-hand vehicle, you will register that vehicle once. And so long as that vehicle is in your ownership, you'll never have to, never have to worry about registering that vehicle again. And I have some people say, legitimately, they say, well, what are you going to do with all that lost revenue? Every vehicle, every four-wheeler, skidoo that's registered, what are you going to do with the money that's no longer going into the province? And I say, well, first of all, we're going to get the province in order to make sure that money is available so that people can have it in their pockets. But just as importantly, I ask the question, if you're not spending $140, $200, $300 or plus dollars to register your vehicles and your four-wheelers and everything else every year, what are you going to do with the extra cash? You're not going to put it in a bottle and stick it under your bed. You're going to spend it. And when you spend that cash will be taxed. And if you choose to spend it locally or however you choose to spend it, the government's going to get a portion of that back into general revenue anyway. So it puts more money in your pocket, it will help businesses that are trying to grow, and it will help meet the needs of New Brunswick by allowing more money into the local economy. Those are changes we're determined to make. At the very center of the People's Alliance, when we started this party 8 years ago, we did so with the intent of changing the way politics and government is run in New Brunswick. I'm tired, and I've been tired, of every 4 years going to the ballot box, casting a vote, and not having representation for the 4 years after that vote. And we all do it. And for years what we've done as a province is we voted Liberal, and then we voted Conservative. And then we voted Liberals again because we didn't want the Conservatives, so get rid of them, they're terrible. We vote the Liberals back in. 4 years later, all those Liberals are terrible. We'll vote the Conservatives back in. 4 years later, you know what I'm saying? We do this back and forth, and nothing changes because the parties haven't changed. People say to me, well, why don't the parties change? I said, well, why would they? It's working for them. Right? They don't have to change anything. If they continue to get elected, if we as voters continue to give them carte blanche to do what they're doing, why would they change anything? They're not going to change anything. They need a reckoning. They need a third voice to get in there and say, this is enough, it's going to stop, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire regardless of how things shake out. We're going to hold them accountable. So we do this back and forth, and the problem is we vote on election day, and then the representative, and look, I know these MLAs. I've come to know several of them very well. I'm of firm belief that many of them are in there for the right reasons. They want to change things, they want to work for their people. But you're taking people with good aspirations and you're putting them in a broken system. You can't change, it's not necessarily about changing the MLA, it's about changing the system by which the MLAs are operating in. You know what I'm saying? So what we have today is we have MLAs, Liberal or Conservative, that we elect or we have elected in the past, and they get into office, and instead of representing the people that elected them, they represent their party first. And I can give you multiple examples of where governments have pushed forward on agendas, where governments have pushed forward on party policies in spite of local representation. I've had MLAs who have told me, look, my people want me to do this, but my party's telling me to do that. And they always end up doing that rather than this, and the people of the province are left out in the cold with no voice. That is a broken democracy. Fundamentally, at the very center of the People's Alliance is the opportunity for free vote and fair representation so that MLAs elected under us would represent the people first and the party second, the way democracy is supposed to be. And I can assure you, when we're sitting in the legislature after September 24th, and we're part of the legislative process, and MLAs that are under us come to me and say, Chris, how should we vote? I say, don't talk to me, go talk to your people. You want to know how to vote, go hit your coffee shops, go do some town halls, go to your constituents and ask them how you should vote on this bill, on how this bill affects their lives, on how this bill shapes their future. That's where the MLAs should be going, not to their party leader or their party whip. I talked to MLAs today that have voted on bills they haven't even read. Voting on bills they haven't even read. They simply look back at the party leader and they say, how would you like me to vote? Oh, you want me to vote yay? Then I will vote yay. Oh, you want me to vote nay? Then I will vote nay. And we just have this constant partyocracy that is taking the place of true democracy. People need their voice back. We're going to give it to them. We are also determined as a party to have some common sense and some fairness in how our forests are managed. I'm a firm believer that New Brunswick has a beautiful forest and resources that is able to keep the economy going, but yet at the same time not completely ruin the future of the forest that we have. As a party, we've already called for the end to glyphosate spraying and on Crown land. And the reason why we've done this is because we've heard from so many people, and there's too many questions out there on its effects both to habitat, the environment, and human health. So if there's questionable effects, that to me gives me enough evidence to say, stop it. Until you can take the questions out of the way and know for certain it's absolutely safe, stop doing the practice. And you know, if you end glyphosate spraying on Crown land, that you have the opportunity there to create up to 1,000 jobs. Because right now what you have with spraying is they do the clear cut, they have a handful of people on the ground setting up perimeters. I don't know why they need perimeters if it's safe, but they do. Set up these perimeters all around, then they get a pilot and a helicopter or plane flies over, sprays this stuff on the ground, kills all the vegetation, kills the growth that could be there, and off they go. So a handful of people spraying this stuff on the ground, this herbicide, which is killing any foliage to come up in the forest that was once there. If we switch the practice, what we're going to do is we're going to get hardworking people that want jobs to go out there and do it manually the way they used to when the forest industry was vibrant and growing. You see, we've gone backwards. We've gone backwards in terms of how we manage our forests. And we've not been progressive in allowing private woodlot owners to get their fair share that they're entitled to. I talked to many private woodlot owners, some of you are here today, that have said that the amount that you're getting today is less than what you were getting 30 years ago. How is that a progressive forestry policy? And why is private woodlot owners not the primary source of wood the way it should be before they even go to Crown land? That's reasonable. And it makes sense. So we're determined to make sure that private woodlot owners are back in the game. We're determined to end the spraying on Crown land and get back to manual silviculture. And we're also determined to review the current allocation of wood through the last government's forestry deal, which is seeing more clear cutting, reduced buffer zones, and all kinds of things that is affecting our environment and that's affecting the industry at large. Things have to change. But here I am today, speaking in Miramichi, which at one time was the forestry capital of Canada. Now think about that, the forestry capital of Canada. This was the heartbeat of the forest industry across the country. Today, it's been decimated. The forestry industry is all but non-existent here in the Miramichi. And I don't believe that the forestry industry has to have its last kick at the can. I think what the forestry industry needs is some true competition, some fair allocation to the wood that's out there to make sure that private woodlot owners are looked after, to make sure that government does what it needs to do to represent the people and to be fair with industry, that the economy can grow and move ahead as one unit in the province. Folks, I understand how politics works. I understand the draw to certain parties, the traditions that are held in certain parties. You know, I said many times before that I was raised in a home where my father was a strong conservative. And, you know, there were many campaigns. I'd go up with Dad and I'd be helping him put up campaign signs for conservative candidates. Now, in my home, I also had a stepfather who was a strong liberal. So I always joke around, you know, one election I'd be putting out conservative signs, and a couple weeks later I'd be putting out liberal signs. So I understand getting it from both sides, and I understand the tradition that's held in voting for these two parties, that it becomes ingrained, and there's a certain loyalty that people feel towards these two parties. And I always use my grandfather as an example. You know, my grandfather was a strong Toronto Maple Leafs fan. He was, did I hear a mumble? I didn't hear a mumble. He was a strong Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And I remember every Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, Grampy would be there on the couch, and he'd be watching his Maple Leafs blow it game after game. And I lost some votes there, didn't I? You know, anyway, they'd be playing bad. And Grampy would complain, Grampy would bounce, and he'd throw pillows, and sweat would be pouring down his forehead that the goalie didn't stop, or the defense was pathetic, or where's the offense, and on he would go. And I thought to myself, well, he's given up on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he did, until next Saturday night. Right? Maple Leafs would play again, he'd be in the same couch, watching the same team play the same game. you know. And as time went on, Grampy died. He passed away, God bless him, as a strong Maple Leafs fan. And I thought to myself, you know, that type of loyalty for a hockey team that's entertaining and, you know, that's great. I'll tell you folks, that same type of loyalty in politics is terrible. And it's this very same type of thinking that has gotten this province in the state that it's in. Because if we simply vote based on tradition, or we simply vote based on that's what we've always done, then guess what, folks? That's what we're always going to get. So at some point, we have to break away from that. We have to use our logic and our reasoning. Look at the history of these two parties. Look at the way they've governed. Look at the decisions they've made time and time again. Every election, they come out with a new leader, a new face, a new coat of paint, but it's the same broken down car that's riding the machine. It's got to stop. It needs a new, fresh approach for New Brunswick. It needs an outsider like the People's Alliance to make things work. We're going to get things done. So I want to encourage all of you that are here today, don't give up. Listen, this is the final stretch. We're sensing momentum all over the province. Our membership is increasing. Our momentum is building. We know that there are areas of this province that are red hot and ready for change, and we're working hard to make sure that change comes. And one final thing before I close that I do want to mention. I'm hearing through the grapevine, I'm being somewhat discreet, but the word coming out from the two parties now is, see, here's what they do. Let's just back up here a little bit. When we first started, the parties kind of looked at us and they said, nah, right? No threat, no worry. Just isolate them, marginalize them, don't talk about them, ignore them, they'll go away. Well, the first election came and it raised some eyebrows. Hey, they actually got some votes and they made some momentum. Second election came and the eyebrows raised a little bit more. Now they're looking at us and they're seeing us as a viable threat. So now they can no longer marginalize us. That's not working. They can't ignore us. That's not working. Now they're trying to kind of ridicule us. Bring it on. And now they're saying, well, they're gaining momentum. They're changing the hearts and the minds of people. They're opening eyes to how government operates and what needs to change. They're coming out with some really good policies. They're realizing we're a viable threat in September. So now what they do is they start their propaganda wars. You know how that works? You know, start fear-mongering. If you vote for the People's Alliance, you're going to split the vote. And if you vote for the People's Alliance, you're not going to be able to do anything, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before. What they're not telling you is, first of all, as a party, our goal is always to form government. We're getting as many candidates and we're going to work as hard as possible to form government. That is the goal on the wall. Should we fall? Yes. Yes. That is the goal on the wall. But should we fall short of that goal, I can tell you right now that New Brunswick is poised for a minority government. And all we simply need is a handful of seats in the middle of that legislature, and we will control the balance of power in government. You see, these elitists that have been in the legislature sucking from the trough for the last decade or more, right? They won't tell you that. They'll tell you that they can't form government. They won't dare talk about minority government. Frankly, I could care less. Gallant or Higgs makes no difference to me. As long as we have the balance of power, we control the decisions, we hold the upper hand, and we can do it with just a handful of seats to make the work for the people. So don't let the fear-mongering, don't let the nonsense of the parties which try to marginalize us, try to ignore us, and they realize they can't do it anymore. Don't listen to their propaganda. Look at things for what they are, realize the policies that are coming out, look at their history and what they've done, and ask yourself, have they done anything that accredits my vote? Have they done anything that has boosted my confidence? Our unemployment rate hovers between 9–10%. Our taxes continue to go up. Our roads continue to be filled with potholes. At any given time, there's 350 seniors that are living in hospitals. They don't need to be there, but there's nowhere else to put them, so they're living in hospitals. You got 8, 10, 12-hour wait times in emergency rooms. If you need a hip or knee replacement, God, you're waiting 5–6 months for that. If you're lucky, possibly up to 2 years. We've got teachers that are burned out. We've got an education system which is showing low scores because of their burnout. It goes on and on and on. I am flabbergasted that anybody at this stage of the game could put any confidence in red or blue. It's time for purple. It's time for a new New Brunswick and to move this province forward in a positive way. I always say it this way. It's my job as the leader to drive the bus. It's the team that works so hard to make sure the engine's fine-tuned and that the wheels are turning on that bus. Amen. But it's up to all of you to help be a part of getting on the bus and taking the message into the election in 2018 here in September. And here's how you play a part in that. You get behind your local candidate. You find out who's running. You give them everything you got in terms of the time that you're able to allot to the campaign. And sometimes it's simple things. Knocking doors, handing out some brochures, or putting up signs, whatever. Things like this is a big plus. There's all kinds of ways you can help. If you can put a couple hours in or several hours, it's up to you. But I know the campaign team needs your help, and the candidate will need your help. But if you can help financially, that's a plus. Spread the word. Help us find candidates. Get behind the candidates that we currently have. All of these things will change New Brunswick so that in the end, we can have more jobs, less taxes, and balanced books with a good healthcare system, strong education system, and with roads that are actually paved and plowed when they need to be paved and plowed instead of building new ones. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here this afternoon. I'm very optimistic with this Miramichi team. You folks are incredible. The dedication and the work that you've put into this area, this region of the province, has been just humbling, I guess, to say the least. So keep up that good work, keep up that momentum, and I look forward to what September 24th is going to bring. Thank you very much, folks.